one of the things that the church does, of course, is get involved in education, traditionally has. And in many cases, it's, of course, a very good education. I worry, however, about the tying of labels around the necks of children who are too young to know what their religious views are. And this shows itself especially in places like Northern Ireland, where a child is branded, a Catholic child or a Protestant child, long before it knows what its views are. And then suffers, and I really mean suffers in the case of Northern Ireland, from that. I have a kind of immediate recoiling against the very phrase Catholic child, Protestant child, Muslim child. Do you have any of that, or are you quite happy?
No, I do share your worries. I mean, think particularly about Northern Ireland, and there's no doubt about it, religious education can in certain services be divisive for the reasons you mention and other reasons. I think on the positive side, I genuinely do believe, I wouldn't obviously necessarily think this, that you would share this, that for a child to be brought up in an environment which is based on the assumption and suffused with the feeling that there is an ultimate meaning and purpose to human life, that our sense of human worth and dignity is ultimately grounded in something beyond itself. I think that this gives a dimension and a kind of richness to an early child's education that it is difficult to think of as a purely secular education giving. So I cannot help feeling that however strong the values might be in a purely secular school, and I have no doubt about it that they can be very strong indeed, nevertheless there is a kind of deprivation there of what I would call this other dimension, a sense of the of richness, which I think a religious early upbringing can give.
Well, I'm all for that kind of richness, and I suppose I should take that as a challenge to try to think of how I would, if I were planning a school, how I would try to put that richness in. I do agree with you that it is important.
Because, I mean, if we just to sort of switch the tack of the conversation a bit, I mean, I know from your own writings that you have a very deep sense of wonder and joy at the universe. For you, the universe is not a bleak place, and you love poetry, and poets express a lot of what you are. I also know, and this is perhaps even more important, you don't think that just because there is competition through the evolutionary process that human beings are therefore inevitably conditioned and determined in that way, and you have a very strong moral sense that actually we ought to counteract that. Now, you see, I think that both your sense of wonder and joy in the universe, and particularly the whole animal world, and your strong sense of that it is a moral thing to be a human being, as well as a wonderful thing to be a human being, I think that those are ultimately grounded in a religious view of the universe. They make most sense against the background and within the context of a religious view of the universe.
We could be playing with words here, couldn't we? I mean, in one sense, exactly what you express is correct, and you could even use the word religious. I mean, there is a sense in which I'm a very religious person, and I think you've captured that sense in what you've just said. It's really a matter of whether the word is appropriate, because for most people, the word implies a supernaturalism, which I don't buy, because I think in a way it makes it less wonderful. I mean, I think that the thought that the universe is an orderly place which we can understand and which is devoid of capricious, wanton interventions, at very least. I mean, miracles I certainly wouldn't wish to have any truck with. And I think I'm religious in the same sort of way as Einstein would have called himself religious. He didn't believe in a supernatural God, but he had a very, very deep reverence. And I think I have that.
I'm sure you have. I think you do. I'm sure you do. But I was particularly interested in your phrase, an ordered universe, which we can use our rationality to understand. I absolutely agree with that, because I think this is ultimately grounded in a divine ordering, a wisdom, of which as the old Stoics used to say, our human rationality is a kind of spark. And again, it's not that your view is any way invalid. It is just that if you place it within the context of an overall religious belief, you can see how it all beautifully fits together. The world is ordered, and you can understand it rationally and explore it, whether it's through maths or physics or evolution or whatever it might be, because it is ultimately rationally ordered and grounded in an ultimate wisdom.
I have a colleague in America, a biologist, who is a devout Christian, and he's one of the fiercest opponents of creationism and intelligent design that they've got in America, and he does it very, very well. And his view is that intelligent design stroke creationism is a form of blasphemy, because he sees the ordering of the world as something that his God put into it, and to get in there and meddle in the form of, say, miracles, which naive creationism certainly is a kind of blasphemy. But I take it that as an Anglican bishop, you wouldn't deny miracles, and I think you ought to be consistent with what you've just been saying.
Well, first of all, I believe that there is a very severe limit to the number of miracles that any God could perform without denying his fundamental purpose.
That's just hedging.
No, I mean, I sincerely, very passionately believe this.
Right.
I think there's a very severe, because I think if God was doing miracles the whole time, then we would live in an Alice in Wonderland type of world. It would be unpredictable, and you and I wouldn't be able to have a rational conversation, because rationality can only emerge in a world which is ordered and stable and predictable. So I actually seriously believe this, but I don't roll them out altogether, and it may be that certain human beings have an extraordinary potential and power which we don't fully understand, and which are more developed in some people than others. Now, when it comes, for instance, to the healing miracles of Jesus, I actually have no difficulty about believing the majority of those. I mean, I actually do believe he had an extraordinary ability to heal, which was developed in him in an extraordinary way, and relied in part upon the kind of faith which was aroused in him. If clearly some other miracles I would find very difficult. So I wouldn't want to rule them out altogether.
I think I wouldn't want to rule out some healing miracles, because, and I think maybe you're kind of saying the same thing. I mean, I know the power of psychosomatic medicine. I know the power of placebos. I could very well imagine that somebody who has, and it's not to denigrate the illness. I mean, a psychosomatic illness is a very real illness, but to have a powerful personality who lays his hands on you. I mean, I get it with a doctor. I mean, a doctor who gives me confidence. Doesn't actually have to give me any pills.
But I think I want to go beyond confidence, and I would want to say that there probably are some people who are so profoundly spiritual, so profoundly filled with the Spirit of God, that they do have extraordinary powers.
Which you would actually call supernatural.
I would call them supernatural in the sense that they are filled with a particular kind of spirit. It's not so much that there is a divine puppeteer pulling and pushing strings. It is rather particular human beings have, from the Spirit of God within them, developed this extraordinary capacity through a closeness to God, but also probably through very extensive spiritual disciplines. And I'm thinking of certain kind of Russian starets, certain kind of holy people, hermits, the desert fathers, all these things perhaps way beyond our comprehension. But I'm inclined to believe that there have been, and there probably still are, people like that.
Beyond our comprehension, of course, still
at
could
the
well
moment.
be at the moment. It could well be encompassed within science, because science, of course, is incomplete.
I think a lot of it could be encompassed within science, but it may be that there are certain spiritual capacities which people have, which can't totally be encompassed or explained by science in the end.